If you were to select an existing aircraft as the foundation for a heavy close air support platform, the F-16 would likely not be your first choice. Designed explicitly as a lightweight dogfighter, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, often referred to as the Viper, was significantly smaller compared to aircraft like the A-10 Warthog. However, the designers had other plans, and over time, they transformed the F-16 into a formidable close air support platform, even equipping it with a massive 30mm cannon to rival the Warthog. The story of this ambitious Viper conversion program traces back to the 1980s. The F-16 was rapidly adopted by both U.S. defense forces and foreign militaries. Initially limited to short-range air-to-air missions, newer blocks and models of the F-16 expanded its capabilities to include a wide range of air-to-ground tasks. While the F-16 is rarely thought of as a heavy lifter, on paper it can technically carry a substantial payload on its two innermost wing pylons. Advanced pylon mounting systems, such as the older LAU-88 for triple-mounted Mavericks and later the TER for Mark 82 bombs, allowed for high payloads. Today, such loadouts are rarely seen, especially in newer tape phases, but the capacity remains. In the mid-1980s, the Viper platform was seriously considered for a new conversion program. At the time, the U.S. Air Force's primary close air support aircraft was the A-10A. Though more archaic than the modern Warthog, the A-10A was still a highly effective platform. As discussed in previous analyses, the Warthog had several distinct advantages over earlier multi-role jets. Its slower speed allowed it to better interact with ground troops, observe the battlefield, and repeatedly engage targets without losing visual contact. Its exceptional low-speed performance also enabled it to carry a wide variety of weapons simultaneously. Even in its early form, the A-10 could loiter over the battlefield for extended periods, effectively identify and neutralize ground threats, and carry sufficient munitions to sustain operations far longer than other fixed-wing aircraft of the era. However, the A-10 had one notable drawback. Unlike the faster Russian Su-25, it relied heavily on fighter escorts to operate in contested airspace. Despite its strengths, there was significant hesitation about the Warthog's design during the 1980s. Critics pointed to its slow speed and vulnerability in contested environments, among other concerns. While many supported the Warthog, others believed it was already obsolete and dangerous. This debate persisted until Operation Desert Storm in 1991, where the A-10 proved indispensable in its intended role. However, during the 1980s, the tension surrounding the Warthog's future was palpable, particularly within the Air Force. While the Air Force appeared uncertain about the A-10, the U.S. Army advocated for transferring the A-10As to their control. The Army argued that the Warthog's design was ideally suited for troop support, and that if the Air Force no longer valued the aircraft, they would gladly take it. Despite this push, the A-10 remained exclusive to the U.S. Air Force Reserve Command, and the Air National Guard. During this period, concerns about a potential large-scale land war with the Soviet Union and Europe prompted discussions about how to provide substantial close air support. This led to the approval of extreme aircraft loadouts for use in the event of an invasion. Both A-10s and F-16s were envisioned carrying absurd quantities of Maverick missiles, mounted on pylons typically restricted for such use, and in triple clusters. These loadouts were not sustainable. For example, equipping an F-16 with 4 triple cluster racks of Mavericks would quickly strain the airframe after multiple launches. However, the rationale was that these aircraft were unlikely to survive long in such a high-intensity conflict anyway. In December 1986, after declaring the A-10 inadequate to meet the Army's 1982 Airland Battle Doctrine, the Air Force approved the A-16 program. This initiative aimed to overhaul the F-16 airframe into a dedicated close air support platform. The proposed upgrades included a reinforced airframe to support heavier payloads, a 30mm cannon, 7.62mm minigun pods, and enhanced compatibility with a broader range of air-to-ground weapons. Despite the program's ambitious goals, resistance began to grow. Many within the military community remained staunch supporters of the Warthog, questioning the F-16's suitability as a replacement. Critics argued that the Viper, despite its versatility, could not replicate the A-10's unique combination of durability, firepower, and loitering capability. This debate highlighted the challenges of adapting a lightweight fighter into a dedicated close air support platform, underscoring the enduring legacy of the A-10 Warthog in the realm of ground attack aviation. Opponents of the proposed A-16 program urged the Air Force to develop a follow-up aircraft similar to the A-10, which they called the Mud Fighter. However, in 1989, the project was rebranded as the A-16 Block 60. This initiative involved modifying various F-16 models, including the F-16A Block 15 and F-16C Block 25, which were painted in the distinctive European 1 camouflage scheme. Critics argued that the A-16 design would still have limitations, albeit different from those of the A-10 Warthog. While the A-16 would be faster, it would carry less ordnance than the A-10. Some detractors also contended that the increased speed would not necessarily make it safer in contested airspace, as the F-16, when loaded with heavy stores, would be less agile and have a significantly shorter range compared to the A-10. In 1989, Air Force Chief of Staff General Larry D. Welch made his stance clear during several interviews at an Air Force symposium. He asserted that the A-16 was the best close air support CAS design available, and that no viable alternatives had been proposed, which justified the program's continuation. In response to criticism, Welch stated, "I don't give a damn how you slice that data. I don't give a damn if you turn it upside down. I don't care how you look at it. The data does not say Mud Fighter. The data says A-16 inches." Similarly, Lieutenant General Michael J. Dugan, Deputy Chief of Staff for Plans and Operations, defended the A-16, calling it damn close to the ideal solution. He emphasized that the A-16 was proven, lethal, affordable, supported, and backed by existing infrastructure. Dugan also argued that the A-10 no longer met evolving requirements and could not be modified to do so. He stated, "The A-10 doesn't meet evolving requirements and can't be modified to meet them. It does just what we designed it to do, but is no longer adequate. The Air Force doesn't want the grandson of the A-1, nor is it looking for the son of the A-10. At the same time, NATO Commander General John R. Galvin pressured the Air Force to make a decision, expressing a preference for the A-16. Galvin dismissed the Mud Fighter concept as based on a blurred picture and asserted that the issue had been studied enough. He believed the A-10 had no future in a high-intensity conflict. The prevailing sentiment at the time favored the idea of F-16s and tornadoes working together to provide close air support, using rocket pods and fast passes to engage targets. However, budget constraints forced the Air Force to accept that they would not be retiring the A-10s and replacing them with A-16s. On November 26, 1990, a congressional directive mandated that the Air Force retain a certain number of A-10s, effectively ending the A-16 concept. While some within the Air Force hoped to revive the program when budgets allowed, the prospects for the A-16 looked dim. Despite the official end of the A-16 program, the desire for a dedicated CAS-F-16 persisted. The Air Force shifted its focus to upgrading Block 30 F-16s to perform close air support in battlefield air interdiction (BAI) missions. This new concept was dubbed the F/A-16. The upgraded variant would include several advanced features for the time, such as GPS support, digital terrain mapping, a modular mission computer, and an automatic target handoff system to facilitate data exchange between pilots and ground units. The concept was first tested on a special F-16C based at Shaw Air Force Base. Although it was a Charlie model, this F-16 was equipped with an Alpha model heads-up display, QD, and tail base, along with various other modifications. In 1991, the 174th Tactical Fighter Wing of the New York Air National Guard converted 24 F-16 A Block 10s to carry a 30mm gun. These F-16s were equipped with a slightly miniaturized version of the A-10's 7-barrel GAU-8A cannon, known as the GAU-13A, which featured 4 barrels. The cannon was housed in the GE GPU 5A paved claw gun pod, attached to the aircraft's centerline pylon, and loaded with 350 rounds of ammunition. The plan also included upgrading new F-16Cs to the same standard, equipping them with the AN/AAS-35V paved penny for laser tracking, a feature already present on the A-10. 7 F-16Cs and a single F-16B were fitted with these modifications as part of the test program. The F-16B also received the Falcon Eye forward-looking infrared FLIR system on its nose. Additionally, these upgraded aircraft featured slight armor improvements, including a light metallic matrix and a Kevlar laminate surrounding the crew compartment, flight controls, and compressor. Alongside these retrofitting efforts, the F-16 Advanced Fighter Technology Integration (AFTI) program was also underway. This program aimed to explore further enhancements to the F-16's capabilities, ensuring its relevance in evolving combat scenarios. While the A-16 program may have officially ended, the Air Force's efforts to adapt the F-16 for close air support demonstrated a continued commitment to leveraging the platform's versatility. The F/A-16 concept represented a pragmatic approach to meeting CAS requirements, even if it fell short of fully replacing the iconic A-10 Warthog. Supposedly, some A-16 technology was tested on the F-16 Advanced Fighter Technology Integration (AFT) program for a period, though nothing significant resulted from these efforts. Test flights were conducted with a 30mm cannon installed, and initially there were no major issues during takeoff, landing, or cruising. However, problems arose during live fire testing. The cannon testing quickly revealed what should have been obvious from the start. The F-16, being smaller and less robust than the A-10 Warthog, struggled to handle the recoil and vibrations of the powerful 30mm cannon. Even the A-10, a much larger and sturdier aircraft, could experience challenges when firing its massive GAU-8A cannon. When the 30mm gun pod was tested on the F-16, the entire aircraft shook violently with each burst. The vibrations were far more severe than those experienced by the Warthog, making aiming extremely difficult and even affecting the aircraft's ability to maintain stable flight due to the intense recoil and combustion forces. Pilots reported that the vibrations were so severe that controlling the aircraft during firing was nearly impossible. The best they could manage was to use the cannon as an area effect weapon, spraying bullets indiscriminately across the test range. The instability was attributed not only to the F-16's smaller size, but also to the fact that the cannon was mounted in a pod, which transferred the recoil force through a single pylon to the airframe. This setup was far less stable than the A-10's internally mounted cannon, which was integrated into the aircraft's structure. Additionally, the F-16's high speed made aiming even more challenging, and the lack of a CCIP, continuously computed impact point, system in this configuration forced pilots to rely on outdated run-in methods to estimate bullet impact points. After just a few days of testing, it became clear that the setup was unworkable. Pilots could not effectively control the aircraft while firing, and the heat and gases from the cannon were damaging the fuselage. By the end of 1991, the gun pods were removed, and the project was deemed unacceptable. Despite these failures, the Falcon Eye forward-looking infrared FLIR system tested on the F-16D showed promise. In one notable test, an M60 tank driver recounted a simulated battle where tanks hit at night, and the F-16D used its FLIR system to locate them. The F-16 consistently found the tanks before the tanks could detect the aircraft, demonstrating the effectiveness of the FLIR system in night operations. However, this success was not enough to save the F/A-16 program. In January 1992, the project was officially dropped in favor of equipping Block 40 F-16Ds with the low-altitude navigation and targeting infrared for night lantern system. In a September 1991 issue of IEEE Spectrum, Pentagon engineer Pierre Spey, who had worked on both the F-16 and A-10 programs, highlighted the A-10's effectiveness during Operation Desert Storm. Despite the Air Force's preference for high-tech solutions, the A-10 accounted for 2/3 of tank kills and 9/10 of artillery kills during the campaign, despite making up only 1/12 of the aerial force. Spey's observations underscored the A-10's unmatched ability to provide close air support in contested environments. The primary argument in favor of the A-16 was contradictory. Proponents claimed that while the A-10 was more durable against ground threats, its low operating altitude made it vulnerable. Yet the A-16 was designed to operate at similarly low altitudes, sacrificing the F-16's high-altitude strike capabilities without offering the A-10's durability or redundant systems. Furthermore, the debate over CAS reflected differing interpretations of the role. Air Force leadership favored precision strikes using guided munitions, while the A-10's ability to loiter below cloud cover, visually identify threats, and provide sustained suppression fire proved invaluable in supporting ground troops. This capability allowed troops to maneuver, advance, or retreat, a feat that single precision strikes could not achieve unless every enemy target was neutralized. The Soviet Union's adoption of the Su-25 Rook, a design similar to the A-10, suggested a broader recognition of the value of low-altitude, lingering air support despite the increased risk. While the A-16 was an interesting concept on paper, it was unlikely to outperform the A-10 in practice. The A-10's unique combination of durability, firepower, and loitering capability made it an irreplaceable asset for close air support, a role the F-16 could not adequately fulfill. The A-10 Warthog's design is uniquely suited for close air support, capable of carrying large weapon loads and loitering over the battlefield at low speeds for extended periods. Since Desert Storm, the Warthog has repeatedly proven its effectiveness, earning widespread popularity among both civilians and soldiers as the premier modern close air support aircraft. In contrast, the A-16 would likely have faced the same challenges as the F-4 Phantom in Vietnam when performing KS missions. These issues include high fuel consumption, limiting time on station, poor visibility or losing track of targets due to high speeds, and reduced agility due to performance constraints. Like the F-4, the A-16 would have remained vulnerable to infrared missiles at low altitudes, lacking the A-10's triple redundancy systems and heavy armor for protection. The A-10's design was shaped by the lessons of Vietnam, grounded in real-world experience rather than theoretical concepts. While the F-16 is a versatile platform with potential beyond its original role, transforming it into a Warthog-like aircraft was likely an unrealistic goal. The A-16's limitations highlight why the A-10 remains unmatched in its niche, proving that some roles require specialized designs.